Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. I've been a little bit under the weather lately, doing what I can to get through this, but this has been a tough one. So if you hear a little cough or sniffle during this video, don't pay any attention to it. Still going to try to get a little information out to you guys to help you out. What I want to talk to you guys today about is shortwave radio. I read recently here, with everything that's been going on in Eastern Europe and all the blockades of information and different news outlets being shut down or censored in certain areas, and certain social media outlets are being shut down and curtailed. There are media outlets that are going back to shortwave radio. And shortwave radio is what was used to get information around the globe back before the internet. And the internet kind of really beat it down, but now that all these things have been going on and there's all these problems with the internet, shortwave radio, once again, people are relying on that to pump out information. Now, I don't want to go over all the technical aspects of shortwave radio. I just want to kind of cover the basics so somebody who does not have any idea about shortwave radio can kind of get familiarized with my little short video here and can kind of decide whether or not that might be an information gathering source for their personal use if something would happen to the internet, which is entirely possible with everything that's going on. And I've got several shortwave radios. This one right here is probably my oldest. I have had this for literally decades, and this guy right here is just a little handheld unit. I've taken this guy hiking, I've taken it in my packs, it's rode in a vehicle, and lately this has just been kind of hanging out on my shelf with some of my other electronics in one of these guys right here, just in case. Those blackout bags are nice to throw small electronics like radios and stuff in, just to give them an extra layer of protection. But shortwave radio is worldwide. It's not like FM radio where there's a short distance where it's broadcast. And the entire radio spectrum, people don't broadcast in the entire radio spectrum on shortwave, and you can see those little lines there. Each one of those little lines has a different set of frequencies in them, and they kind of graduate from the lower end up to the higher end. Those frequencies are called meter bands, and those meter bands is where people broadcast. And depending on where you are on the face of the earth, that is kind of depends on the meter band that people follow, and it also depends on the time of day. Now here in North America, typically they're kind of like certain atmospheric windows. There are certain times when certain parts of the globe get better reception. So that's what those shortwave channels will broadcast in. And here in North America, it's typically in the late afternoon and the early evening. Let's say between 5 o'clock and 11 o'clock at night Eastern Standard Time is typically when you will pick up different shortwave broadcasts. And there's not as many shortwave broadcasts as there used to be on let's say 25, 30 years ago, kind of pre-internet. Like I said, the internet kind of beat down shortwave radio a little bit, but the ability to have shortwave radio, I think, is kind of important. There's some caveats when it comes to shortwave radio, though. First of all, not all of the broadcasts are going to be in English. However, most stations and channels that will put out programming will do some in English, because English is considered kind of the universal language. So you might get, a chunk of Spanish or something, or a chunk of Hungarian, and then you might get a half an hour of English after that or before that. And then they will jump around frequencies sometimes. They'll say, okay, we're going to stop broadcasting on this frequency and we're going to go to this frequency. So then you have to tune into a different frequency. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. And another thing is propaganda. A lot of shortwave broadcasting is done by governments. So you have to take that into account when you're listening to shortwave radio. that you might be getting one particular government's point of view or another. So that's always something that you have to keep in mind when you're listening to shortwave radio. So, but still, I have found it to be extremely useful as far as getting information. And if something would happen with the internet, I'm thinking that shortwave is going to kind of come back around a little bit. So I think it's definitely worth it to have a little bit of a shortwave radio of some variety in your preps. Now, when it comes to shortwave radios, the less expensive ones will have limited meter bands, and the more expensive ones will cover the entire radio spectrum. And that's kind of how much money you want to spend and what you think you need. So I would start with something small that covers your basic, I'd say if it's got 4 or 5 meter bands available on that radio, it's probably going to be pretty good. But you don't have to necessarily have a radio that covers the entire radio spectrum. Stuff like long wave and different things like that, that's not gonna help you out much. But one of these is inexpensive. You don't need any license or anything like a ham radio operator does to operate that equipment. You can just kind of sit back and listen, and it's small enough to throw in a pack or have available if you need it. So I just wanted to touch base on that stuff there. I think it's important for you guys to know that, just in case something would happen to the internet, there are alternate ways to get information long range around the globe without the internet. So anyway, this is Modern Refugee. Appreciate all my subscribers out there. Hope you guys got a little information, a little entertainment on this video here, and hopefully it'll be just one more thing that you can add to your toolbox. Anyway, you guys take care.